Hello and welcome back to SimonsRants. I'm Simon, and today I'm going to be giving my on second thought about the King of Comedy. Now, this is your spoiler warning. I'm going to be talking about the movie in its entirety, so if you haven't seen it yet and don't want anything spoiled, click away now. But it is a great movie, so you should go ahead and watch it and then come back and watch this one later. Thanks. So in case you don't know, The King of Comedy is directed by Martin Scorsese and, as usual at this point, is starring Robert De Niro. It also, however, is starring Jerry Lewis, who is phenomenal in this movie. But before I get into the critiquing, I want to talk about the plot real quick. So the plot of this movie, in case you don't know, is Jerry Lewis plays kind of an alternate version of himself where he's a very famous comedian. He even changed the name that they had of the character from Bobby to Jerry so that when they're in public filming and people shouted at him, it would make sense for the movie. So he plays a Jerry in this movie who's a very famous comedian who is now the talk show host of a late night talk show. Robert De Niro's character is obsessed with him. He wants to be just like him. He wants to be even better than him. He wants to be a comedian like him that can almost look down on him. He wants to be so great that his previous idols now have to look up to him. That's De Niro's whole goal in this movie, which is excellently shown throughout the movie through his daydream sequences. So essentially, Robert De Niro's character is trying everything he can to go about it the right way, and it's not working. Now, his version of the right way isn't really right either. He sneaks into Jerry Lewis's car. He keeps showing up at his office every day and eventually shows up at his house. These are all the things that he does to try to break into the industry. Now, all of these don't work, and eventually he snaps and ends up kidnapping Jerry Lewis to blackmail his way onto his show, and then he gets on the show, does surprisingly well, goes to jail, and then when he gets out, actually becomes famous because his show did so well. And then, just like in Taxi Driver, the controversy of the character actually leads to success for that character. And once again, it's a really great commentary, just like Taxi Driver was. This movie actually surprised me in a lot of ways. It doesn't really feel like a Scorsese film, and that's not a bad thing necessarily. It just, first of all, it's like a dark comedy. Scorsese's never really done that as far as I know other than this. It doesn't really feel like his typical movie. It feels like something different that he was trying out, and it was great for it. I know Jerry Lewis did direct a couple of scenes in this movie, and maybe that had an effect on the overall feel of the movie, but it was really good. I really liked it. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, chronologically, this is my favorite Scorsese film. Now, granted, I'll get into the movies later that I like better than this, but up until this point, I liked it better than any of the other ones I've talked about. And I don't think that's a very popular opinion, but I really like this movie. It really took me by surprise. Now, that's not saying it's a perfect film, and there's some flaws to talk about. I think the main one that sticks out to me is the character of Masha is pointless. And I know that she has a small impact on the actual storyline. She's the reason Jerry Lewis's character escapes from the kidnapping. But I feel like you could have easily taken out her character and you wouldn't have been missing anything at all. There's some other way he could have escaped from that scenario. He could have just been left alone and he managed to cut himself free. And then other than that, Masha's character is pretty much just annoying the whole time, doesn't add anything to it. I was half expecting her to not be real, and that she was just some sort of fascination or fantasy in Robert De Niro's mind, thinking, oh, I'm too cool for these people. Meanwhile, everybody's going, there's no people that you're talking to that you think you're cooler than. But in reality, according to the plot, that she was real. I didn't like her character. That being said, however, the best scene in the whole movie, in my opinion, is the little scene between her and Jerry Lewis when he is kidnapped and she has dinner set up for them. That was my favorite scene in the whole movie. It was great. I loved how it was paced. I loved the dialogue. I loved the whole picture. It was great. But other than that, I probably would have been happier if she wasn't in the movie. And then you've got Robert De Niro's actual love interest, who is similar. She does have bearing on the plot. She is important. She deserved to be in this movie, but she doesn't do a whole lot either. You've got a couple other characters like that are neither here nor there, but really this movie is about Robert De Niro and Jerry Lewis. And for me, this was Robert De Niro's best performance I've ever seen. I loved it. I'm not the biggest Robert De Niro fan. I feel like generally he plays the same character in every movie. That's changed over the years, but he's only got a few characters he ever really seems to play, and this one was so different than anything else I'd seen him do before, and he did it really well. He was extremely convincing. I loved every second of it. He was great in this. I don't know what else to say about it. He was great, awkward, quirky, everything that you would need him to be in this role. He was awesome. But then Jerry Lewis was even better. I love Jerry Lewis, though. I'm a huge Jerry Lewis fan. I've seen just about every movie he's been in. He's always hilarious. He's always great. Even when the movie he's in isn't, he's always great. He's always fun to watch. And he was phenomenal in this movie. He received critical acclaim for this movie, which is well-deserved, and he didn't understand why. He was like, I just played myself, but I don't think he understood how good he was in this movie. He was awesome. I really enjoyed Jerry Lewis in this movie. He really balanced well the funny nice guy with the troubled star who's always surrounded by people screaming his name. Jerry Lewis really did take inspiration from his own life for this, including another one of the best scenes in this movie, which is actually based on his real life, where he's walking through the city and people are shouting his praise, asking for autographs, and he's like signing a couple but trying to keep going, and he comes up to a payphone and this woman says, oh, you have to sign this for me. And he goes, okay. And then she goes, oh, now talk to my nephew. And he goes, no, I'm sorry. And she goes, he's sick in the hospital. And it's like, I have to go. And she goes, I hope you get cancer and die. And it's like, that turn is so quick and it's so genuine and it's so frustrating, but you know that's what people are like. And I just love that scene. I love that moment. And I remembered once I saw that scene, him talking about that. And I think like comedians in cars getting coffee or something. And it's just frustrating but awesome, him being able to take that from his real life and putting in this movie. He did that throughout the whole movie. He was so great. Another great little moment was there's a scene that happened by accident, and as Orson Welles says, movies are just a bunch of little happy accidents. And one of the happy little accidents in this movie was Jerry Lewis is supposed to be coming home. Robert De Niro and his love interest have kind of broken in. They forced their way into his house, claiming that they're supposed to be there, and they're waiting for him. He has no idea that they're there until the butler calls him and says, they're here. So he comes home pissed off, ready to kick him out, and the butler goes to open the door and he can't open it. It's stuck for some reason. Eventually he gets it open, and Jerry Lewis walks in and goes like, what are you doing? Just open the door. I've been waiting 8 minutes out there. And I wasn't scripted at all. The door wasn't supposed to be stuck. It just happened and it was awesome. And it was a great little moment that I'm really glad they kept. But getting back to the nitpicks, there are a few problems I have with this movie other than Masha. I feel like the pacing was a bit off with this movie. It felt a little bit sloppy at times. I think also that even though the plot is building toward him kidnapping, and I knew that he kidnapped him, and I actually thought it was more of the plot that he would have been kidnapped, I felt like that's when the plot started running out of gas. It felt like this movie was kind of written on the first draft, and so everything kind of just flowed in a certain way, kind of in like a John Hughes kind of way. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it wasn't a great thing either. It just felt like the plot was running out of gas near the end. However, that was saved by the very end of the movie, which had Robert De Niro's performance going out on TV, which was surprisingly funny. I enjoyed it, but it also showed the darkness behind the character, as through the act he slowly gets darker and darker until he is on air saying, sorry, Jerry couldn't be here, he's a little tied up at the moment, and I'm the one who tied him up. And he's like admitting on air through jokes what he actually did, and he goes, I'm not joking, you think I'm joking, but I'm not. You think I'm funny right now, tomorrow you're gonna think I'm a psychopath. It was a great little thing. And then you see him go to jail, and he goes to jail for like 6 years, and then he comes back out and he's written a book and he's gonna star in movies and he's a famous comedian now. And it's like, that's how the modern times go. It's just a frustrating fact of the world we're in, where it's like controversy breeds interest. There's no such thing as bad publicity, and it's frustrating, but you know it's true with the society we live in. And so it's a great commentary. It's a great movie. I'd say it's honestly underrated. Looking at different people's ratings for it, had like a 7.8 and like a 76 Metacritic, and I was sitting there going like, I feel like this is at least like an 8. I'd probably give it an 8. There's too many nitpicks for me to go much above an 8, but still the 7.8 and whatever, 7.6, that was too low for me. I was like, it's better than that. So, yeah, unpopular opinion here, I think it was his best work so far. And maybe people didn't like it because it was so different. Really didn't feel that much like a Scorsese film. There was a couple of shots here or there that you're like, that's something Scorsese would do. But other than that, it felt like, I don't know, Wes Anderson light-ish with the dark humor. Even the editing was a little bit more basic than normal. They had a couple of things in there, a couple of things that Thelma Schoonmaker did that I wasn't a fan of. Overall, it was pretty just basic, straightforward directing. And that was okay for this movie. I thought it worked fine for this movie. But yeah, if I had seen this on TV, had no idea who directed it, missed the opening credits, somehow had this part of my brain removed that I knew that he directed it, and seen it, I wouldn't have guessed Martin Scorsese did. There's no real connection between this movie and his normal directing style, but I thought it was good. I mean, it's nothing against his normal directing style. I like it, but this one was great, and it was different. And maybe it's because he forced himself outside of his box, and maybe that's why it was so good. You saw a lot of these people involved who were forced out of their box. Scorsese was, DeNiro was, Jerry Lewis even was a little bit. He was playing kind of like a meaner, older, grumpier man that I don't think he'd really played characters like that before. A much more subdued character than he had ever done before. So maybe that's what led to it being such a good movie for me. But I don't know. That's just what my opinions on it are. So let me know in the comments below what you guys thought. And of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It does help me out a lot. I do need it. Thanks, guys.